welcome to Mama Mandala. I'm Hagar. I'm glad to have this moment with you. We are in the liminal space of the end of one year before the other one begins. So if you're getting this video around the time I'm releasing it, we are entering that space between the years. And if you are getting it at a different time, liminality wraps itself around us and undulates inside of us no matter what. So wherever it is that you are in the middle of things. You're in the space between. There's always a threshold. The yogis tell us that the threshold, that the space, the liminality between the breaths is where the entirety of the universe exists. It's where the doorway to the infinite opens up. And there's a text called the Vijnana Bhairava, which translates, roughly as the wisdom of the intense infinite. Bhairava is the most ferocious and intense form of Shiva. And this text is a conversation between Shiva and his beloved Shakti, and it is a compilation of dharnas, of meditation that are invitation into the somatic liminal, into the places in our physicality and in our the relationship between the physical body and the rest of the world and something greater than the physical, if you are into that. It's the threshold within those relationships that open up. And so there's many different meditations in the text. The first one, or actually the first few, focus on the space between the breaths. And this time of year, again, if you're catching it in December, this time of year and all the way into kind of mid-January, it's a doorway that opens up that allows us to be held in the opportunity, in the invitation to unpattern certain things, to repattern other things, to untangle and undo and dissolve some of the things that need to be undone, and to weave new ones into being. And it's also an invitation into the place where we are not actually doing the thing, but we are held between untangling and reweaving, where we're not exactly yet in action, and yet we're always in action because we're always breathing. But the space between the breaths opens up the contemplation. And what the yogis tell us is that that space is in two places. It's inside of us. It's in Sanskrit, it's hrid. It's inside. Hrid means heart. So it's at the heart of our heart. It's at the core of who we are. It's the heart space physically, or you can go a little below. Sometimes it's thought of as like the bottom of the sternum. So xiphoid process, it's called. Bottom of the sternum, inwardly, on the inside of your inside, where the physical space becomes subtle, becomes imagined, right? It's the imaginative center of your being. And the second one is 12 fingers from your nostrils, right? I measured it. 12 fingers from your nostrils. And it's the space between you and the rest of the world. So the inhalation originates from 12 fingers. It's called in Sanskrit Dvadashanta. So it's 12 fingers from your nostrils. That's where the inhale begins and the exhale ends. So that's the space we're holding, and it's the space between you and the rest of the world. It's a space between your subtle body, because your subtle body doesn't end in skin, but ends in that 12 finger space around you, right? That's what the yogis also imagined as your aura. And the exhalation begins at the hrid, at the heart. That's where the inhale ends, and there's a pause, there's a gap, and then the exhale is coming from there. And that first dharna talks about the way that the power of the universe, the Shakti, the goddess, ceaselessly continues to emanate, to create herself. And we find her and her nature as the infinite, as Bhairava, when she is the everythingness. She's the masculine and the feminine. We can talk about it for years. So we're just in a very quick, short YouTube exploration of this. So don't expect it to go to the deepest place, but I'm sprinkling some things at you, some ideas. And then the Dharna says, and if we stabilize ourselves in that space between, we find her and her nature as Bhairava, as that intense infinite. And this is where plentitude, they tell us, is. This is where the inclusion of the everythingness of the universe is. This is where the entirety of creation is. It's in the Dvadashanta or in the Hrid. And plentitude, abundance, can be the invitation in ourselves into finding what we most need right now. Because if we're in plentitude, then what is most needed? When you are in plentitude, but the plentitude gives you lack and stress and discomfort, what do you need that can help you in the place you're in? Because when you're breathing, that space between the breaths can open up, and that plentitude lives there. So if you're in a place of lack, from the plentitude you can reach for what, or receive what you most need in this time, in this liminality. So come to your hands and your knees, to your all fours, and spread your fingers and root your hands into the earth. And with an inhalation, reach your hips back and your chest forward. And pause. And with an exhalation, round your back and look in towards your navel, and pause at the Dvadashanta, 12 fingers in front of your nostrils. And from there, the inhale comes in, and reach your hips back and your chest forward. And bring a tone to the back of the throat so that you're breathing Ujjayi breath. And at the top of your inhalation, you pause so that when you just can't hold it anymore, the exhale comes, and you round your back and you look towards your navel, and you let the breath pause at the Dvadashanta, the space that's in front of your nostrils, 12 fingers. And then from there, inhale and reach your hips back and your chest forward, and bring the breath, the power of life into the depth of your heart, the spiritual heart, the depth of your being that is more than you. And from there, release the breath and round your back and send the breath to the space between you and the rest of the world, the Dvadashanta, and pause right there. What do you need most? Can you draw it as you breathe in from that space? Inhale to the space between cat and cow, to where your spine is rounded and curved at the same time. Exhale slowly into downward facing dog, and keep finding that space. Root down with your hands into the earth. If you are watching this at this time, before the winter solstice, before the turning of the wheel, inhale, lift your right leg up, pause at the top of the inhalation, in the Hrid, in the heart, and with an exhalation, slowly bring your right foot to the outside of your right hand, and bring your left knee to the floor, and pause at the bottom of your exhalation. And from there, let the breath pour in. Inhale. If you are watching it and keep focusing on your breath here, left knee is down. Hug your right leg into your right arm, so there's a connection to the midline, to the center, to the space between things. And breathe. Continue to breathe. Right now, we're still in Sagittarius season. If you're into astrology or the symbolic language like I am, I'm not necessarily in that faith-based relationship with it, but I love the symbol, the mythic, the invitation into playing with archetypes. At the end of your next inhalation, pause and then hold it. Then send the exhalation all the way out to Dvadashanta as you step your right leg back into Adho Mukha, Svanasana, downward facing dog. Hands root into the earth. Inhale the left leg up and pause the breath. At the end of the inhale, at the Hrid, at the heart, at the core of your being. And then exhale slowly and bring your left foot outside of your left hand, right knee down to the floor. And with your left leg, hold into the center. And that center, that space between things, isn't a solid entity, a solid place, but rather an interchanging, commingled, undulating, serpent-like creation. Because our center is always changing. The space between things always changes. Keep breathing. And Sagittarius, if you are with me on this symbolic, mythological, archetypal invitation, is holding that space between animal and human. It's part horse, part human, wild and also wise and domesticated but untamed. Exhale to downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana, widely educated. The centaur is known for being highly educated. The Sagittarius is wildly philosophical and knowledge seeker. Inhale, bring your knees down to the earth, and with an exhalation, bring your hips down and forward as you lift your chest forward and up, point your feet, spread your toes. Cobra, another liminal creature. Move your hips a little side to side, move your shoulders a little side to side in Cobra, that lives in the subterranean world but also knows how to rise and climb and wrap itself around a tree, wrap itself around the center and keep moving the center around. This cobra, the snake, the serpent is Kundalini. She's our own center. Exhale to downward facing dog that isn't static. Stable but fluid. Right leg up, inhale. Bend the right knee, open up your right hip, reach your right foot towards the left. But as you reach your right foot towards the left, there's going to tend to be a collapse on the left side of your body. So lift the left arm bone up and lift the left hip up as you reach your right leg to the right. And keep breathing and notice the space between your breaths. Let every part of the breath originate in that space between. And then reach your leg back as you breathe in. And as you breathe out to Dvadashanta, step the right foot forward. In between your hands, bring your left knee down to the ground and reach with an inhale your arms all the way up. But you don't reach before you pause, and then the breath carries you. As you breathe out, lift the upper body up and descend deeper into your feet. And draw, engage, connect to the Hrid and to the core of your being. Draw the hip bones, the front of the hip bones towards each other, the sides of the ribs towards the center. So there's deep connection to the core of you as you open the core of you, as you reach yourself long and tall and wide. Deep breath in. Pause at the Hrid. And with a slow exhalation to Dvadashanta, bring your hands down to the earth and step back to downward facing dog and pause before you breathe in again. Left leg up, deep breath in. As you exhale, bend the knee and open up your hip. Finding that space between the civilized and the untamed parts of you, because you need both. Sagittarius is the invitation to not decide that you're one or the other, to weave together the two. Deep breath, reach the left leg back. And then exhale, step the foot forward in between your hands. Right knee down to the earth. Wait for the breath to rise from the space between. And inhale, reach your arms up. Hold Vadashanta and then exhale slowly as you bend deep into your left knee and reach your arms way up towards the sky. And as you lengthen, as you open, as you reach, pull in also. So front of the hip bones, the ASISs, the anterior, superior, iliac spine, pull them towards one another. Draw the sides of the ribs in. Engage inwardly deeply and even pull the legs towards each other as you elongate. As you reach, as you lengthen, as you breathe, one more full inhalation here. Exhale, touch the ground. Downward facing dog slowly. Inhale, knees to the floor. Root your hands deeply into the ground. Exhale, hips down and chest forward and up into cobra. Into the serpent. She rises up the Shushumna Nadi when she awakens, according to the yoga stories, to the yoga tradition, to the way that we are taught of Kundalini. But she undulates. Her journey isn't a straight hierarchical line necessarily, right? She must move into the subterranean world again in order to rise up, in order to pierce the different aspects of her being, of our being. Exhale, bring your big toes to touch and take your knees wide apart and move your upper body a little bit side to side. Come into child's pose for a moment. Forehead on the ground, forearm on the ground. Deep breath in. Slow breath out. Deep breath in. Feel your heart, the plentitude. Slow breath out. Feel that space between you and the rest of the world. That abundance, that resourcefulness. Keep breathing and bring yourself back to hands and knees. And follow the exhalation into downward facing dog and keep meeting yourself in that space between the breaths to find in the liminality the resources you most need right now in your life. Right leg up, deep breath in. Exhale, slowly step the foot forward in between your hands and bring both of your hands to the inside of your right leg and spin the left heel to the ground. Walk your hands diagonally away from your right hand, but then bring your left hand threaded underneath your right arm to the inside of your right knee. And with your left hand, push your right knee away from your right arm, but with your right knee pull in. So the right knee pulls into the left hand and the left hand pushes into the right knee. And breathe, lift your hips up and breathe. And keep doing that work of pulling in and pushing out. The liminality, the space between the inner and the outer and the inner. And all the wisdom that it holds. The wisdom of this season of Sagittarius, of moving in toward the darkness. The reflective time of year. Walk your hands to frame your front foot. And with a slow exhalation, step back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Left leg up, deep, slow inhale. Slow exhalation, foot forward in between your hands. Right heel to the floor, hands away from your left foot diagonally. And then thread your right arm underneath your left arm. And hold the left inner knee with your right hand as the knee pulls into the hand and the hand pushes into the knee, and breathe. Stay in the space between your breath. And watch the unfoldment, that space between the liminality, the pause, and the movement that follows and leads are all important. Focusing on one gives us access to the other. Root your hands down, frame your left foot and step back with your exhalation, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana, deep breath in. Pause at the head. Slow breath out and walk your hands slowly back towards your feet and maybe bend your knees a little bit if that's a lot for your hamstrings. Slow breath in. Slow breath out. What do you need as you pause in the spaces between? What do you need from the plentitude of the universe, from the goddess herself, from that power within you and around you, in the liminality, in the creative, destructive, both powers of that space between? What do you need? And how can that serve you and more than you? Separate your feet a little bit wider. Turn your toes a little bit out and move your hips side to side as you bend your knees. Move your torso to the space between your thighs. The hips move side to side. The torso goes into the space between the thighs, and then slowly lower your hips. Malasana. You can put a block underneath your hips if you need to. Hands together in front of your heart. With your legs pulled into the arms, with the arms push into the legs. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out mindfully. And then have a seat. If sitting on the floor is not your thing, you can sit up on something. That's totally fine. Place the foot in front of you if you're seated on the floor that you're less used to. So when you're seated, usually for meditation or pranayama, you have a leg you usually put in front of you. Put the other one. Move your hips a little side to side and rest your hands on your thighs with your palms facing down or up, whatever is most needed for you right now, and allow your eyes to soften and let them turn inside and focus on the breath and the space between the breaths. In the plentitude of the universe that meets you when you stabilize your attention between your breaths, as the Shakti, the goddess, the power of the universe continues to unfold, to create, to become, to dissolve. Can you help yourself right now in your life by finding the resources that you need inside of you, in the hrid, in that space between inhale and exhale? And in the Dvadashanta, in the space 12 fingers distance from your nostrils that surrounds you, that is that permeable boundary between you and the rest of the world, that resourcefulness of that relationship. Ask for what you need from yourself in that abundance, in that fullness. Give yourself the message that you need so that you can make this time, this liminal time, meaningful, valuable, helpful for you and more than you. Meet the fullness of you, the wholeness of you, which includes all the broken pieces and all the too muchness and all that saddens you and all that fulfills you. And pull from it the thread that is going to help you weave the most helpful fabric for this moment in your life. That is not only for you, but is also for something greater than you. Please stay with this for as long as you'd like. I hope this has been valuable for you, and I cannot wait to share more with you. And if you liked this video, put a like on it and share it with the people in your life you think would benefit from it. And subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and subscribe to our mailing list over on mamamandala.com. I will leave a note for you in the description of the video, and I cannot wait to continue this journey and many more together. Thank you. Namaste.